Is rising on a point of order.
Speaker, thank you. Madam Speaker, it's not with pleasure, but it is with dismay that I rise to add to the question of privilege first raised last Thursday by the member for Calgary Nose Hill and discussed yesterday. I've now also received information from an access to information request, and so it's my earliest opportunity to bring forward my concerns regarding a breach of my privilege, because the package shows that the government deliberately held back information I sought from the Minister of Natural Resources through written questions number 984 and number 1050, which were submitted on November 17th and November 30th, 2022, respectively. Of course, we all know that normally OPQs come back with information responding to questions, which is my right as a member of Parliament. But most importantly, to me, it's also my duty to get answers for my neighbours in Lakeland and other Canadians about the Liberal government's plans and promises. I filed those OPQs to ask about the status of LNG projects, of course, very important to the communities where they are languishing, and also to our country's future, and also about the costs that the federal government cites relative to environmental targets in Canada. The information from the ATIP does reveal that staff from Natural Resources Canada deliberately attempted to deny me these answers, and therefore all Canadians, by using vague language and then redirecting to publicly available Government of Canada and external non-governmental sources. In fact, in both instances, the replies did not include not a single one of the specific figures that were explicitly requested. This breach of my privilege, and the privilege is, in my view, what enables me to work on behalf of the people of Lakeland who sent me here, is not the first time, of course, that the Liberal government has tried to avoid answering questions from members of Parliament. On February 2nd, 2023, the Speaker ruled on a point of order made by the member for Calgary Nose Hill at that time, and said that providing the House with accurate information, quote, is a fundamental one, and it is a central accountability mechanism, a concept, of course, I think with which all of us agree. Recently, on June 5th, our colleague and my neighbour from Battle River Crowfoot raised similar concerns about the status of OPQs, and now this, in my case, it's unfortunately, it's a pattern, really, of blocking MPs' legitimate rights to ask questions of the government on behalf of the Canadians that we all represent and to whom we must be accountable, which is really, in my view, the most important aspect of this debate. Now, so I've also learned that in my case, I was specifically targeted in this disinformation campaign. In the government's preparation of the response to my question 984, a departmental comment in the ATIP says that Natural Resources Canada and Environment Canada will reference public sources only and using, quote, the same response in the inquiry of ministry. In the response to my question number 1050, the Parliamentary Affairs Unit's notes state that the language used in the response to this question was reused from a similar response, and that the, quote, Minister's Office confirmed approval of language, and the response was submitted to the Privy Council Office. In this ATIP file, it's apparent that there are several records of discussions and meetings held to strategize about how to withhold information from opposition members of Parliament, and notably, in this case, from all Conservative members of Parliament. On page 85 of House of Commons Procedure and Practice, it states, quote, when it is alleged that a member is in contempt for deliberately misleading the House, one, it must be proven that the statement was misleading. Two, it must be established that the member making the statement knew at the time that the statement was incorrect. And three, that in making the statement, the member intended to mislead the House. So it's certainly not my place to interpret or to declare how that ought to be read. But, you know, I must say that insofar as the request for information was made to the minister, and it seems his staff is either on his behalf or acting independently, deliberately blocking or limiting the information in responses, so that part seems uncomfortably relevant to me as well. Members have often raised concerns about inaccurate and omitted information from responses to order paper questions. But recently, these responses are even worse, as highlighted in the ones that I received. And it's now clear why, because deliberately misleading members is apparently a priority topic of discussion among senior staff in the minister's office and senior staff in the departments. And these discussions clearly do demonstrate a deliberate plan to present information better suited really to the communications needs of the minister instead of a commitment to provide complete and accurate information to Parliament and therefore to all Canadians. You know, unfortunately, it is the fact that this does seem to reflect a pattern overall, which is the very opposite, of course, of openness and transparency and accountability, certainly as the Information Commissioner has noted frequently over the past 8 years and also very recently. I also just want to say that I find it very concerning that the specific conversation between staff on Friday, January 27th, 2023, completely acknowledged that there was a, quote, communications risk for the use of, quote, high-level limitation language that does not answer the written question from an MP. In considering that, that risk to them, the Deputy Chief of Staff to the Minister of Natural Resources says, quote, I'm expecting the Speaker to tut-tut and then say it is not for him to judge the quality of a response. So political staff are intentionally weighing the publicity and PR risk in providing the information that I'm entitled to as a member of Parliament, importantly on behalf of the people that I represent. So, Madam Speaker, the correspondence in this ATIP request, what's interesting is they acknowledge that the ruling is actually clear and that previous rulings have been that, quote, there are no provisions in the rules for the Speaker to review government responses to questions. The Speaker has referenced this exact wording 13 times since the Liberals took power. But what's now explicitly clear, as highlighted by the exchanges in this ATIP, is that senior political and departmental staff are using that ruling to withhold information. And they're also, presuming that they know how the Speaker will respond and rule about insufficient answers to order paper questions from members of Parliament. I think it is quite serious that ministerial staff are using previous Speaker rulings as a shield from doing their jobs and fulfilling their responsibility to provide information, accurate, complete, fulsome information requested by MPs for all Canadians. I just want to close by making clear why this is so deeply concerning to me. As a member of Parliament for whom best representing constituents is my absolute #1 priority. It is my guiding light. It is the whole and only reason that I am here. I trust that the Speaker will take under due consideration in their deliberations what this kind of opaqueness and deliberate attempt to withhold information really says about the ability of members of Parliament to do the core, fundamental, highest priority, all-consuming duty and responsibility that we have to do here on behalf of the people that we represent. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I thank the honourable member for her words, and it will be taken under due consideration.